Good evening, all. Sorry to be running a few minutes late. Let's see who we've got.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jim, Robin.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Isidro. Leo Jimenez is going to be just a couple minutes late. And Mary is will not be attending tonight. Hi, Bruce. All right, Chanel, can we promote Yana Almonte? Sandra Harris will need to be promoted for the second item on the agenda, but you can, move her on up, and Julio Batista as well. Wait, Huáscar Robles, are you DOT?
Yes, I am.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right, thank you.
I should know that, but it's been a while.
Okay.
And Oscar, who else is here from DOT that
There's a few of us. There's Janine Kidder. She's the executive director of community affairs.
Oh, of course.
And with her, it's the entire team that is going to present the Broadway presentation. I think Dennis Beagle is included in this group as well.
Okay.
If you, there you go. She's right there.
Good evening, Deborah. This is Jonine. If you could hi. We also need to be sure that a gentleman named Eric Kelly, and then I see also Dennis Beagle. Mr. Kelly will actually be leading the presentation for us. There's Dennis.
Hello.
Hey, Dennis. I'm sorry it's been so long since I've been around for a Bridges update. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit fuzzy on whose names are who.
That's correct. I see Mr. Kelly is in. He needs to be a co-host.
The district office staffer with us tonight, Chanel, is very on top of things, so we should be in good shape momentarily. And Chanel, there's Ross Frommers arrived, so he can get promoted as well. And not to demote you in any way, Marshall Vanderpool, but I think for this, we're going to move you over to attendees for now. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
And Janine, do you know if Kimberly Rancourt and Lyle will be joining us tonight from the Manhattan Borough team?
I absolutely expect Lyle. I'm not sure about Kimberly. She's in a different division, and I was not aware that she was part of tonight. I believe that Borough Commissioner Pinkar is not scheduled to be joining us.
No, you're right. I think you're right. I think that Lyle will probably be here, and Kimberly usually comes around for a lot of stuff, but I think you're right that she won't be with us tonight, knowing you're here.
Right, Lyle here. Looks like Lyle is connected now.
Okay, great.
Debbie, I was just going to watch. You don't need to have me on as a panelist. You can put me back down as an attendee if it's okay.
Okay. All right. So I think we are. Now let me just do a count on my committee to make sure we've got enough folks. Hey, Lyle. Jay Mazer, I see you. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're good. And I'm sure Leo Jimenez will be here in just the next couple of minutes. So I'll try to
Yeah, just
take
ask
notes
you.
and talk at the same time, which, we know typically doesn't go so well, but why not try? So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is thanks, Chanel. The March 2022 meeting of Traffic and Transportation Committee, CB12M. I'd like to welcome tonight from the Traffic and Transportation Committee, Jim Berlin, Robin Cruz, Bruce Robertson, Jay Mazer. I can't remember if I said my own name. It's Debbie Nabavian. Also from CB12 tonight, we have Isidro Medina. And tonight on the agenda, Chanel, we still need to move, I think, Yana Almonte up, no?
Yes, please.
I think that's why her camera was off. Yeah, she was just asking me if she was still on.
I was like the person who sends all the emails.
And Lyle,
Exactly.
Lyle is there too. Deborah, I'm not sure if he.
Hi,
Hi, Lyle. Okay, very
Yeah,
good.
he's up. Okay.
Oh,
great.
I've been trying to promote Yana, but it's not sticking. I
Oh.
don't know why.
Do you want her to go out and try to come back in?
Maybe.
Sometimes that's
I
better.
don't know what's going on.
Is Yana, like, does she need to,
She won't be speaking, so she doesn't have to be a host or a panelist or something. You could leave her, I guess, as an attendee, but we did want to have
Okay,
everybody have
right.
the chance to actually see her since she's the liaison.
okay, and so Yana, thank you for being here. And if you, because sometimes there's a thing with the version of Zoom, so I'll just say, if, questions are coming your way, etc., just, I think you now can unmute yourself. But if not, just,
There we
raise
go.
your hand if you need.
Hi, I don't know if you're.
There
Hello.
we go. Okay.
The
First
storm
piece is
must be
done.
Picking up because the door in the room I'm in is just opening and closing like I have a ghost. It's very strange. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is we have two topics, both are relate to DOT. We're going to start with bridges, and so Janine, I'm going to pass it to you. Do you want to do introductions for the team that's
I
here?
can.
And okay, thank you.
I can. So again, thank you for having us back at Board 12. We're happy to be back. I'm Jonine Kidder. I'm the Executive Director of Community Affairs at the Division of Bridges. With me tonight is Dennis Beagle. Dennis, take a wave. Dennis is
Hello.
our Director of Movable Bridges and Tunnels. I'm happy to have senior engineering staff with us tonight. Also with us is Huascar Robles, who I know you know. He is my deputy in community affairs. And Yana, who still seems to be having a little bit of a camera problem. Yana Almonte, who is your community liaison for the Broadway Bridge. Probably the most important person from our side tonight, other than our presenter, who is Mr. Eric Kelly from HNTB. Who we've met before. So what I'd like to do, of course, and Lyle, how could I forget Lyle, my partner in the Manhattan office. Apologies, Lyle. It's hard for me without seeing the people's faces. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric. Eric will take you through a presentation. We do have a little bit of background there that you've seen before because we've haven't been with you for a little while. Thought there might be some new board members or some new committee members. So we're going to present some material you've seen before. We'll go through that somewhat quickly. And then we will show you some of the work that's been done so far and the work that's ongoing. And then we can respond to questions you have. So with that, Eric.
Very good.
Is he a co-host, Deborah, so he can present?
Yeah, you should be good to go.
Thank you.
Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet, Eric.
Okay.
I'm still seeing the Brady Bunch thing. Okay,
There
looks
you
like
go.
it's coming.
Switching over.
There we go. Okay, we've got your whole screen. There we go. Full
Very
screen
good.
version.
Good
Panorama.
evening. Excellent. Good evening and thank you. Thank you very much. As Jonine said, this is a presentation that's going to just give an update on the Broadway Bridge rehabilitation. And for those who may be unfamiliar with the bridge or with the project, I just wanted to start with a brief overview of the bridge itself. Here's an aerial view of the Broadway Bridge showing its proximity to some critical portions of the area. For example, the Metro North tracks, the shopping mall to the south, to the northeast corner, as well as to the New York Presbyterian Allen Hospital on the southwest corner. The Broadway Bridge itself is a 3-span bridge that has the middle span, which is we call span 2, is a vertical lift span that raises to provide 134 feet clear height for marine vessels to pass underneath. Spans 1 and 3 are called the tower spans, and they are the support and guides for this lift span during the operation. As you know, this is a double-decker bridge that carries New York City Transit on the upper level, that's above the roadway, as well as the Metro North passes underneath span 3 with 3 tracks of its Hudson line. The bridge was built in 1960 and is currently being rehabilitated. The roadways, the existing conditions, it has 2 travel lanes and a shoulder on the southbound side, and then 3 travel lanes northbound. And there are 2 sidewalks, one located on each side of the bridge. It's a relatively busy bridge and carries a number of New York City Transit buses that utilize it for their routes. As mentioned, it carries the number 1 train above the roadway. There are 3 tracks. There's generally a train every 10 minutes on average. I believe it lessens a little bit in the evenings, late evenings and before rush hour. The bridge is being reconstructed at this time. There is construction going on. Some of the things you might be seeing consist of flag repairs or deficiencies that are being worked upon. These include repairs to the open grading, pothole repair in the roadway, as well as railing repairs that are occurring. We've also heard of concerns, and we've installed a cover plate over the expansion joint in the roadway for bicyclists. Some things you might not be seeing that have been going on also are substructure repairs. These have been completed except for the north abutment, and that's because we're going with ongoing coordination with Metro North, and that coordination is for scheduling of the work during their train interruptions, as well as the use of flagmen. So that work is still ongoing and being coordinated. I don't know if you have looked up to the very top of the towers, but on the south tower, on the east side of the tower, we have installed a Falcon refuge. This has been at the request of both the New York State DEC as well as New York City DEP. This nest is for the falcons. It's a safe refuge for them. As part of that work, there's also been a walkway that's been installed, and that's to allow the DEC to be able to go and monitor and track the falcons during nesting, and as well as to just have a wellness check on their offspring and to see how things are proceeding. Part of the rehabilitation is also to replace portions of the machinery that allows this bridge to raise and lower. And right now, the machinery is under fabrication. These are two pictures of two gearboxes that will be used on the bridge that will be operating certain parts of the machinery to allow the bridge to open to marine traffic. These photos show these reducers being tested for their performance to make sure they meet contract requirements. Similarly, while the new machinery is being fabricated, we are removing some of the existing machinery that has been deteriorated. We're preparing the existing conditions for this new machinery in place. The left photograph shows the top of the pier where the span lock machinery was. That has been removed and it's getting prepared and set up to allow for the new machinery to be in place. On the right photo, you can see the portion of the floor has been removed to accommodate new structural supports for the new machinery that will turn the 15-foot in diameter sheave that's located at the back of the picture. That sheave is one of 8 that is used or that turns that allows the bridge to go up and down on its wire ropes. Concurrently with the machinery is the new electrical equipment being built and fabricated. We're going to be providing 3 generators because of the size of the bridge. These are going to provide auxiliary power in case of a blackout in the vicinity. And the picture here is just one of the 3 that are needed for this large structure. Also on the site, we're preparing the areas for the new equipment, similar to the machinery house, by installing new conduits along the bridge, as shown in the picture on the left-hand side, as well as pouring new concrete and preparing areas for the new electrical equipment. This is a photograph looking down at the transformer yard, which is located at the northwest corner of the bridge. There are 6 buildings on the Broadway Bridge, and those are being renovated also. The major works going on with them is there was asbestos abatement that had to be done, and that has been completed. The gatekeepers' rooms are nearly completed. Those are pictures that are shown below. These are the 2 rooms at roadway level that are right on the sidewalk. And they were getting new doors, windows, roofs, as well as interiors. Both the machinery houses, which are located at the top of the towers, as well as the control house, which is where the operation of the bridge occurs, are also being rehabilitated. And they're getting new doors, windows, interiors also. The electrical system is the vital portion of the bridge and is critical in making sure that the bridge is operating. And to allow the 2 sides of the 2 towers to work together, we have to have wiring that crosses the Harlem River. This wiring is currently designed as through droop cables. And these cables are connected to the tower here and then onto the lift span here. So it allows the wiring to go up through the droop cable and then across the lift span to the next tower. These are the control wires that allow the bridge to have communication on either side of the Harlem River during an operation. Because of the size of the bridge, we needed to provide 2 separate electric services on each side of the Harlem River to try to minimize the amount of droop cables that were being installed. one of the situations that we've been looking to do is we tried to reuse the existing ducts or pipes that go underneath the Harlem River. These ducts go from the South Pier underneath the Harlem River to the North Pier. And we thought that it would be a possible option to try to do that. These cables inside these ducts are 60 years old, and we tried in 2 full days of effort of trying to pull one of the cables out of the pipe. And unfortunately, it was unsuccessful. The reason I'm bringing this up, and it's something to discuss, is the use of aerial cables is being considered to eliminate the South Electric service. We're doing all we can to keep the droop cables to a minimum size and quantity of the aerial cables. We're also looking at other methods of the appearance and the quantity of these aerial cables in an effort to try to not make them as obvious but that is something that we're looking at this point. And with that, I would like to turn it back over to Jonine.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Just before we get to the questions, I wanted to just go back a little bit onto the aerial cable.
Jonine,
Hello?
sorry to interrupt you, Oscar. I think Yana left and tried to get back in. If she could be let in again. She's trying to.
Oh, thank you,
yeah.
Oscar.
Sorry, I think she's been waiting outside again.
Oh, thank you, Oscar.
Thank you.
Hopefully, I want to be sure that everyone has a chance to see her. She's the face that goes with the name on all the material we send out. So while that's going on, during the times that we presented the project to you, we received good input on the desire that the community had to eliminate the aerial cable, which, as you're looking at this image, the cable would span obviously from one tower across to the other. Everyone felt it was kind of obtrusive. How could we eliminate this cable? What could we do to avoid this? And as Eric said, at that point, I want to call almost heroic effort was made to attempt to reuse the subaqueous cable duct, which is actually buried underneath the river, to pull out the old cable from under there and put on new power cables through. When he says there was 2 days of effort, it was 2 full days of effort. And I believe Dennis can correct me if I'm wrong. I think the term that I was used is that the cable kept breaking. They couldn't actually pull it out, be sort of like a string in a tube through a straw. And every time you pulled it, it broke. And they kind of
realized. It was just, actually, it was stuck. We could not budge it.
And
it's been sitting in there for 60 years and it just, and it's 2 days in the field, but it was probably weeks of effort, studying things and coming up with plans and everything. So
on how to do it. So thank you, Dennis. So unfortunately, one of the things we're back to share with you tonight is that in order for the project to at least reach the point where we are, at conclusion and can operate the bridge, we will have to go back to an alternative that has an aerial cable above. In looking at that, Dennis, his team, and the HNTB team is looking at whatever is kind of the newer technology since we met with you in the beginning several years ago. How can we make it smaller? How can we make it have the power it needs to have and be a little less sort of just hanging there? And we kind of thought, we do know we have to go back to the BDC and share with them this change. And the questions we can use paint, we can use different colored material. We will come back to you with more information on that as that portion of the project develops. But it was probably one of the important things that we knew we needed to share with you tonight, because it was a specific request that the community made to eliminate that aerial cable. And we were very, very hopeful we could do that. And at this point, we unfortunately will have to go back to our original concept, which was to have the aerial cable on the bridge. The other thing I did want to mention specifically was about the plate that we were able to put over the finger joints. We were only able to do that because the bridge at this point does not have the power to go up and down. It is out what we call out of service for marine traffic. And so we're able to span that panel. Otherwise, what's in there is literally a series of finger joints that need to flex in order for the bridge span to go up and down. As you know, what we will be doing in the final condition is installing a fiberglass material in the bike path, in the lanes assigned to the bike path that will be suitable. The material is referred to, as you know, as FRP. This will be the material that will be applied onto the bridge deck as the riding surface for the cyclists. And that remains in this project. At that point, the deck will be out, these panels will be gone, we won't need them anymore, and we will have the FRP material for the cyclists. Those were sort of two major points that we wanted to make for you tonight. And hopefully we can answer whatever questions you have. Deborah, I don't know if you will be emceeing that portion, since I'm afraid I'll say someone's name incorrectly.
No. I will MC that portion. Thank you so much for that. This great and complete overview. I guess my question is, and forgive me if you did address it, but when is this expected to be completed? And then just if you could just give an overview of, like, from when you first presented it, then I was not on the committee during 2019. I think during that time, something was identified, so we knew there was going to be time added to the timeline. But if you could just say, like, this is when we thought it was, and this is what the new timeline is, and then with a little sidebar for how much you being held up by this negotiation with Metro North about safely doing the work on the north side.
Okay, I'll start with the last first to make sure that I remember them. The issue with Metro North is not what is the critical factor at this point. We do have rather routine conversations with Metro North, and all things being equal, comparing Metro North to Amtrak, Metro North is an easier partner to work with.
Yeah.
I don't see the Metro North issues as really impacting schedule greatly at this point. Dennis will correct me if I'm wrong. It's just an ongoing thing. We have what are called master agreements with all of the railroads, Metro North, the successor to Conrail, which is New York and Atlantic, Long Island Railroad, etc. We have master agreements with all of them that we work through specific. Each project has its own documents, project, contract, etc. Part of what's happening with all the railroads is that they don't have the staffing either to give us what they call the flagging to take the tracks out of service and make them available to work. They have their own projects that they do. They work for other clients. They work for private developers who tend to get a little higher up the priority list than we do. So I don't think Metro North is kind of where the schedule bulge has happened. But Dennis and the team are on top of that. The original completion date, I don't honestly know off the top of my head. Dennis, do you have that? We know it's passed, which is probably...
It was September.
Okay, so we knew it passed. And I honestly don't have a firm completion date for you tonight. One of the problems with scheduling a meeting was that we knew we wanted to hold this date. You had asked us more than once to come back, and we had delayed at least once or twice on coming back. We didn't want to ask for another postponement on this presentation. We wanted to share with you what we had, and particularly to make you aware of the change on the aerial cable. So we held the date for tonight. Don't have a firm date for completion tonight. Our contractor is still working with our design team. And again, Eric is representing the design team here tonight on some changes that we're trying to work through in terms of the actual design and construction of the steel grid deck. It's a kind of big, complicated contractual issue that very hard to summarize in a few sentences, but we have issues with the actual lane widths of the deck panels and how we can maintain an 11-foot lane for the bus traffic to provide all of these buses access across the bridge and maintain the capacity during construction. There's some dimension conflicts. It's kind of, I don't want to say between a rock and a hard place, because one of them has to eventually get amended. But we absolutely have an issue between the size of the deck panels that are being fabricated and our ability to get them at an 11-foot dimension so that we can install them for the buses in particular to ride on them. And so until we can really work this through completely, I don't want to give you a date now and then have to come back or send Lyle back in a few months and say, well, now we've got to push that out again. So if we could for tonight, if you can kind of give us the chance to come back to you again when we've got much more clarity on the completion of the work, we will come back with more specifics on that.
And that's fine. I would just say, and you don't need to answer the following. It can be rhetorical or not if you can actually answer it. And then we're going to move starting with Jay Mazer and then Jim Berlin. But is presuming magically the fabrication issue with the deck panels that you just described got resolved in the next couple of weeks, like through magic, good luck and whatever. Like how much actual work, like is it a year more? Is it 6 months more? Is it like where are we at?
Okay.
I mean, it was supposed to be September, so like
Right.
but,
So,
you know,
one of the, I have to say, each one of our commissioners leaves us kind of with a couple of legacies. One of the ones I learned from Commissioner Trottenberg was that really everything falls into ranges. And so I'm going to put Dennis on the spot or Eric and say, give me an estimate of, in terms, we generally look at these things in terms of months. Is this a 12 to 24 month remaining workload? Is that a number you guys are comfortable with sharing? Again, understanding this is kind of just right off the cuff for tonight. Is Dennis, so you?
Yeah, no, I think, based on the info I've got right now, which is in flux, I would say at least 24.
Okay. Because once we start to get the panel, once we get the design finalized, we then have to get the fabricator actually producing those panels in sufficient quantity to get them out to the site, and putting one or two of them down doesn't give you an available lane. So we're not going to close the lane for the construction until we have enough panels for that lane.
right.
So we've got to get enough panels manufactured, get them to the site, then take the lane out and then get started. So I forgot that lead time. So yeah, I'd say 24 months.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to start with questions with Jay Mazer. I think you were hands up first, and then Jim Berlin, and then Bruce Robertson.
I was just wondering, once the work is completed, how many people will be employed in terms of administering and maintaining the bridge, and in what capacity are they employed?
I'm not sure I exactly understand the question. I think you're asking about our bridge operators. I mean,
yeah. Who works on it? How many of them are? And what exactly jobs do they have?
DJ, you're saying, are there employees that are dedicated to the Broadway Bridge, not swinging across and from the bridges staff generally cutting across bridges?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of bridge operators, I can come back to you with an absolute number. Dennis, not sure if you can hazard a guess. I think it's somewhere around citywide. I want to say 24 or so bridge operators. We have very few bridges where we have staff in place 24/7. There are very few of those left in New York City. We have only 24 remaining movable bridges. The most active of those, believe it or not, is the bridge over on Shore Road that crosses, people refer to it as Pelham. It's the bridge that crosses the Hutchinson River at Shore Road, heading generally to City Island and Ocean to Orchard Beach. That bridge operates somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 or 600 times a year, which is 2 to 3 times a day. And part of that is because it has a very, very narrow space for marine traffic to go through. And then we have some other bridges out along the Newtown Creek out in Brooklyn and Queens that open 3 times a year. And we have a number of bridges down on the Gowanus, as you're probably familiar with, Carroll Street, Union Street, 3rd Street, Hamilton. And those tend to be, again, busier or not, depending upon the land uses associated next to them. And so by way of just example, on Newtown, on the Gowanus, for example, when we have a scheduled opening with a vessel, the crew goes to Hamilton Avenue, they operate the bridge, put it up, take it down. It is also a vertical lift bridge like this. They put it up and take it down. And then as the marine vessel is moving up the creek, they get in the car and they drive to the next bridge. And at the next bridge, they jump out and open it and close it. So that is a very common situation with our bridge operation teams. Broadway is not one of the bridges that has a full-time dedicated 24-hour staff. It is, all of our bridges are theoretically on demand per the Coast Guard, but this is not one that has had a historically high number of openings because one of the most frequent vessels that passes underneath is the Circle Line. And they can usually pass through with no need to raise and lower the bridge. And we have very little other industrial or commercial traffic that requires us to lift the bridge. So the actual openings here are minimal, and whatever bridge operators we have on the Harlem River system would also cover Madison, 207th, Willis, etc., all of those bridges along the Harlem River. Does that, I hope, give you some information?
That's cool information. But I guess
there's a little more to it, I think, than people think of having an idea of a guy like a ferry boat captain kind of sitting in a bridge house just waiting for a bridge of a boat to come along and say, toot, toot, let me in. There are really very limited number of personnel that actually operate the bridge. In terms of the folks that actually take care of the bridges, that's our maintenance, inspection, and operation unit. We have 790 bridges in New York City that we are responsible for. And we have a team of somewhere about 400 that have to take care of those bridges. They're carpenters and masons and iron workers and oilers, and I'm sure 5 other trades, electricians and plumbers and people I've forgotten. But that number is about 400 citywide for 790 bridges.
this is like all sorts of great arcane facts. We're gonna move to Jim. I love this stuff. We're gonna move to Jim Berlin, actually.
Thank you very much. I was actually here when this project was proposed originally many, many years ago. And it was proposed, as you mentioned, with this aerial cable. And the issue with the aerial cable has nothing whatsoever to do with aesthetics, although it would be ugly, no matter what color you paint it. It has to do with making the bridge vulnerable. It appears, and the reason we, and I in particular, and our committee was adamant, and I'm going to try to be real polite, but equally adamant tonight. This aerial cable creates a vulnerability. All you have to do is destroy the cable and the bridge becomes immobile. And this could be done by a saboteur. This could be done by accident. You could do it with an airplane or whatever. So now originally, as you pointed out, there was a subterranean pipe or whatever. and therefore the connections between the two sides of the bridge were relatively invulnerable. Now, what I envisioned, and I'm actually, and I suppose I'm speaking mainly to Eric, is, and this was again, when I proposed this. I think Margaret Forgione was still the Manhattan Borough Commissioner or something. This you get a sense of how long ago this was. And again, I taught physics, and to add to the irony, my father repaired elevators. And in some sense, because it goes up and down, this is basically just an elevator. Now, it's a complicated elevator. It's a very long and heavy elevator. And obviously, the two sides have to go up in perfect synchronization, or the bridge will tilt and it will get stuck. Now, this is obvious. And the simplest way of doing this, and the way they did it when they designed the bridge, but it's not the way we need to do it now. Nor was it the way we needed to do it back when I proposed this originally. See, this is what is so disturbing to me. And you can again explain ultimately what's going on. But and I believe the Bronx Community Board, which is involved, was equally adamant. So, and again, the issue is vulnerability. So there's two ways you can coordinate the two motors in effect, or groups of them that lift the bridge up and down. You can run the whole thing from one side, have all the power going to one side, which is I think the way it is now. And then power goes from the controller on that side to the other side of the bridge, but everything is controlled, on the one side of the bridge. Now, that's if you're going to send all the power across the river to move the motors on the other side of the bridge, you're going to need mighty cables. That's just a fact. And again, I taught physics. So that was not my anticipation of how this was supposed to work. Now, the problem I've had over the years is I can envision systems that make perfect sense, but for whatever reason, and I understand the conservative nature of engineers. I understand that completely. It's vital. It protects us. But it was my thought that all it had to go, number one, you would supply power to both sides of the bridge. There would be obviously separate motors, but the synchronization of the motors would be done digitally. So all that we would be traveling across the bridge, all that would be traveling through the group cables, which I expected actually to be fiber optic, since all they're doing is carrying control signals. All that would be carried are these control signals that sophisticated modern equipment would use to keep the two sides of the bridge coordinated so it goes up vertically. That's what I was thinking of. And again, just to, I don't know, be even more whatever. The reason we made such a fuss about the vulnerability of this aerial cable is when this was first proposed to us, 9/11 was fresh in our memories. And in fact, another thing that drove us crazy was actually just to the south of the bridge, there was, what appeared to be a relatively unprotected liquid oxygen tank on the grounds of the hospital that one could crash a truck into. So that was not making us happy at the time either. So again, and the thing that bothers me.
Okay,
is,
Jim, move it towards, let them
I'm almost
respond.
done. I'm almost done. Okay. Is that, this coordination of two lift motors digitally is something that can be done, has been done, ought to be done, and is not being done. And that's the question I want. Why are you not able to do this? Because you're going to, again, make the bridge more vulnerable with this unnecessary and vulnerable aerial cable. Thank you.
So again, let me start a little bit from the back. I think first, what I'll do is I'll ask Eric, who I know is part of a large firm that has lots of experience with, in particular with vertical lift bridges, New Jersey, New York, beyond just working for us here at City DOT. But I obviously was not part of this as far back as when Margaret may have come to the board initially, but I did. I was part of the team that came. Mr. Berlin, I have to apologize. I remember being at the board office all the way in that big office building where you guys used to meet. And I don't remember a conversation particularly about vulnerability. Maybe it didn't stick with me because we have other vertical lift bridges that we don't have a sense from our work with NYPD and counterterrorism. And we do work with them very, very closely on securing all of our bridges. We've been involved with them since 9/11 on security issues throughout our bridge system. I don't recall this being identified as an issue, but I do know we did discuss it, at least from an aesthetics point of view. So I appreciate your background on that. I think first, Dennis, do you feel like Eric should opine first on this?
Yeah, let's have Eric. He's certainly smarter than I am, so he may be able to speak better to Mr. Berlin's questions. And if there's anything else after that, then I can put something in there. So,
Okay. Let me first just say that, yes, we are utilizing digital technology to operate this bridge. It's going to be, the bridge is going to be controlled through a programmable logic controller, or what they call a PLC, which is a computer. And we will be using fiber for communication across the channel. That is something that we are doing. There are a number of other components on the bridge that require additional wiring. For example, in an effort to ensure redundancy and the ability to operate the bridge, we have to run some copper wire in case that PLC fails. Now, we have a dual PLC system for this bridge. In other words, if one PLC crashes, the operator is capable of switching to the second. If both of those fail, we have a 2-speed motor that is an across-the-line start that is allowing the bridge to operate in a slower speed, but will ensure that it can go up and down. So, DOT is very aware of concerns and the need to make sure that this bridge can lower. And this bridge is one of the more sensitive ones because it's shared by New York City Transit. So we have added a number of redundancies to ensure that. There's also, for example, because of the size of the structure, there are closed circuit TV cameras that are placed, as well as intercom systems to allow communication. So these are all requiring additional wiring to go across. The aerial cable at this time, we are looking to have it only replace the South Electric service to minimize the number of wires that this aerial cable is going to have. The control wiring will still go through the droop cables. Now, your vulnerability is a good concern. And that is one of the reasons why we also went with 3 generators. There will be one on each side of the bridge to allow the bridge to operate if this cable were to fail. Similarly, the droop cables have a redundant system. There's one located, or there's a cluster located on each side of the tower. And if one set were to fail, the control system switches over to the other side to allow the reliability and to make sure that the bridge operates.
I hope that helps. I think, Mr. Berlin, if we still haven't kind of dotted the i's and crossed the t's on this, I will leave it to Deborah and the committee to kind of see what additional information we might need to come back with.
Well, if I could just respond to one of the things that I believe
Tim,
I
please
heard.
make it quick. Please
I
make
will-
it quick.
Yes, I'll make it quick, but on the other hand, having a bridge that's vulnerable is something we should take very seriously. It sounds like you said, and I appreciate, I obviously understood it. The other thing is I taught computer science, so that's the other piece of it. So I'm very familiar with PLCs. The point is that it sounds like because you have a generator on each side of the bridge, if the aerial cable fails, which apparently you anticipated, for whatever reason, you can actually operate the bridge anyway by running both sets of generators and then moving the bridge maybe at the slower speed, but you'll be able to do it. Now, that implies to me, okay, that if you actually had Con Edison power supplying the lift motors on the south side of the bridge, you wouldn't need the aerial cable at all. And you could still do the coordination, digitally. And the other issues that you brought up, everything you talk about could be done digitally. There's no reason to string any wires for cameras. In fact, I live in a complex with 5 tall buildings and Deborah Nabavian as a neighbor. And all of our cameras get their data back and forth, well, one way, digitally. So, and these various sensors and stuff, all that could be done digitally through only, digital, possibly fiber drop cable. So I personally, and the other thing, and then I'm almost done. Thank you, Deborah. The fact that our major point from day one was the vulnerability and somehow DOD forgot about that, that's very disappointing to me because that was the major issue. And it sounds like, and again, you could actually solve the problem now by putting on your digital hats and making the bridge less vulnerable from my point of view. Thank you.
Okay. Bruce?
Yes, thank you very much, Debbie and DOT, Jonine. I'm wondering why this bridge needs to go up and down at all, based on what Jonine said about its low demand number of openings and the circle line goes underneath. I know it's sort of heresy at this point, but what about the tides? What is the economic utilization of the Spuyten Duyvil here? Is this a major thoroughfare for barges and so forth, or is it just a circle line that can turn around and go back down the river, or wait till the tide's lower so they can go around the top of Manhattan? We're knocking our brains here trying to make this bridge go up and down. Does it really need to go up and down? That's my question. Thank you very much.
So this is material, actually, I was going to say for a master's thesis, but it's actually material for a doctorate. The sole decision-making entity on that question is the United States Coast Guard. And the actual regulations, it's a federal regulation that provides priority to marine traffic over any other, and it dates to 1799. Clearly, they were concerned then about boat versus horse, not the modern world. And we have been in a process in a number of locations where we've looked at the viability of essentially decommissioning a movable bridge and making it fixed. It's an extremely long, arduous process, can take, let me hazard a guess, 10 to 15 years to demonstrate the need to the Coast Guard, or I should say the lack of need to the Coast Guard for a movable bridge. This week, actually, I'll be here 13 years, and we have not advanced the one bridge that I will leave you guessing which one it is, but I'll say it's not in the Bronx or Manhattan, where we have looked at the potential of making it a fixed bridge. And it is an extremely difficult, it's, I will say, NEPA-like. It's not necessarily a formal NEPA process, but it is NEPA-like in its environmental impacts and impact what you need to demonstrate to the Coast Guard. And frankly, if one mariner participates in the process and says, I need this bridge to move, then the bridge will continue to move. And particularly at this location, again, pretty clearly on in the way you do alternative analysis, it was pretty clear that that was not a really viable option to present to the Coast Guard. I think I can speak for my colleagues in bridges. We love all of our bridges. We would love nothing more than to make those that move not move. It's a lot more expensive to take care of the ones that move. It's a lot more challenging. It's a lot more expensive. So the 24 of them that we have that move, if we could make them fixed, some of us bridge nerds would be disappointed, but I know that the folks who have to do the work to take care of them would prefer that they not move. And so at this point, I don't think we disagree with you philosophically that it would be great if the bridge didn't have to move, but looking at this structure and seeing how difficult it would be to get the Coast Guard to concur, we would also, if you think about the other bridges along the Harlem River, if this one did not move, then this would essentially become a dead end. You wouldn't come from north to south. Obviously, you would come so far as this bridge and stop. But if you think of the Harlem River, you would take from what we call Ward's Island, which is 103rd Street, all the way up the Harlem River. You would essentially be creating a dead end, as opposed to what is now a through system that proceeds all the way around.
Excuse me for interrupting. What's the through system for whom? Is it economic traffic, or is it tourist traffic, or weekend boaters? I don't know who goes up there.
I can certainly get that information. Clearly, no one's gone up there other than people who can fit under it when it's down during this process. But it almost, I want to say, it almost doesn't matter to the Coast Guard. It's about potential.
Right. Let's take it out of their budget. This is where the politicians get involved.
Okay.
I'm going to shut up and thank you very much.
I want to end that part of the conversation saying we are not in disagreement with you, but not for this project this time.
Fascinating question. Interesting answer. And it's not often we go back to the 18th century in an answer. All right. So as we move to questions from the attendees, I have Allegra and I have Emily Marte. I'm just going to remind, and I know we haven't kept to it so far, but we're going to start keeping to it. People have 2 minutes to ask a question or make a comment, and we'll give about a minute for a response. But then that's it. So basically you have a total of 3 minutes to work with. And Jim, if you can give me a hand on timing, let's do that. So Allegra. There you go.
Hi, thanks, Debbie. Well, I'll try to keep this to 2 minutes as everyone else has spent an hour, and they haven't mentioned the big elephant in the room, which is there are people and cyclists and even drivers who go across this bridge every single day for whom the work is a major impediment to getting around. So I want to know, is the bike path, the future bike path, why can't we do the bike path first after you figure out all the other things and let that be the place that pedestrians can safely walk on either side of the road, even when the construction workers randomly decide, oh, we're going to shut down this side of the bridge today so we can take a lane to park our personal vehicles while we're doing the construction work on the bridge. I also have concerns about whatever cable's running underneath. I'm surprised you said you can't pull it out. Something's wrong with it. I didn't see any side scan sonar. What about horizontal drilling? I didn't hear anything about all these kinds of things. The cost, what is the cost of doing this construction work? And Bruce's question is particularly poignant. Like, how much money are we spending a bridge for a hypothetical once in a blue moon lifting and raising for the Coast Guard? Meanwhile, every single day, there are people who can't get across the bridge. I'm one of those people. I go across this bridge many, many, many times per week. I live in Inwood. I do my shopping at Target. My kids, we go biking through the Putnam Rail Trail. We go biking to get their programming at Botanical Gardens. And that Broadway Bridge is the way we get in and out of our community. The people who work at the Allen Pavilion, who live in Westchester. They all come across that bridge every single day. I don't understand how the Metro North can shut down and make a safe pedestrian path for people on 225th, and the DOT can't make a safe pedestrian path for us on both sides of the Broadway Bridge. It makes no sense at all. And I can't believe we didn't have one iota of discussion on that topic. I want to know, when are the bike paths going to be complete? When can I safely take my kids across this bridge without worrying about getting hit by a car, the speeding people coming across? I can't believe that the people who use this bridge every day, the people who actually live in Community Board 12, there's not been no questions or no attention to how the people who actually use this bridge are impacted by its work. I mean,
Allegra, you're at 2.5 minutes, so you might
I
want
know
to give
I'm
them a
at
little
2.5
time to
minutes,
answer.
but I feel like we spent all this time in a hypothetical, like, oh my gosh, there's going to be some sort of
I understand.
people
but
coming up.
You're running out of time. You can keep doing that. You're running out of
We're
time.
not asking about how this has impacted people who actually use this bridge to get around for work, for school, for shopping. I mean, can we have just a little bit of discussion on what's going on here? And I expected to see a lot more geophysical data about, like, you can't get across underneath. Side scan sonar, horizontal drilling. I don't see any kind of technical. This has all been hand waving. I want to see like numbers, facts, and impacts. Like, how many people walk across it?
Allegra, again, you've used your full 3 minutes.
Yes, you guys.
So
used
would you
zero
like an answer? So
relevant.
do you want
ready
DOT
for-
to respond to the timing on the bike and pedestrian access?
I think that they should respond to how people use the bridge. Like, I don't care about the marine traffic. Does anyone here care about boats getting across? No. I would like for the DOT to talk about people who use the bridge in CB12, how they're impacted, and how this bridge is going to help us and benefit
Okay.
us
All
or
right.
detriment.
Okay, I think we've got the question.
Okay, so there's a lot there. It is important. Let me just go through a couple of pieces of it. We cannot install the FRP material on the bridge deck now because the bridge deck is actually going to be removed and replaced. What we did do in response to the concerns from the cyclists is cover the finger joints, which are the most difficult part for a cyclist to traverse, where the finger joints actually flex and you can physically get the wheel of a bicycle stuck in those finger joints. So we did cover the panels. And again, this is the only bridge where we were able to do that. The FRP panels are part of the permanent capital improvement, and we aren't able to install them now because the entire deck is going to come out. So they will be part of the permanent installation. This is one of the first bridges that will have this material installed for the cyclists, and we've worked very closely with our TPM unit to try to get the right material there. Until we're able to do that, we are continually making repairs to the grading. We know the grading is not in good shape. We have done steel repairs on the deck of the bridge. We have done pothole repairs. Our resident engineer and his team, they're out there responding every single day to the conditions. I don't want to pretend that they're good. We know that they're not. But at this point, we are basically keeping the bridge open and as in good shape as we can, which is why we have a capital project to replace the whole deck. All I can do is apologize to you for the condition of the deck, but we are on top of it, and every complaint that gets in, it goes to Yana, who's here on the call. The calls come into me. Yana's addressing them. She's out there beating the team with a stick to get them to make these repairs. We have had some challenges on the sidewalk with some damages to the sidewalk. Unfortunately, along one of the sidewalks, we have to have one open, unfortunately, from time to time, and one closed, but there is always at least one sidewalk open. And there is a hatch in the middle of one of the sidewalks that goes down to the area under the bridge. And we had some challenges with that again, I very fervently made clear to the team that that hatch has to be closed, or there needs to be a flagger there to make sure that there is safe passage around that open hatch. So I'm fairly confident there is at least a safe pathway around the hatch and along the sidewalk. In terms of the vehicles that are parked on that northeast corner of the bridge, I have brought this to the team's attention many times. Dennis is nodding. What we tracked down most recently when I passed the area, which I do, I passed the area and noted there was some pickup trucks located there. Those trucks were tracked down as not belonging to City DOT, to our employees, or to our contractor. And so I asked Yana to reach out through the district service cabinet, through Ebenezer and the district service cabinet, to go out there and have PD summons those vehicles. They don't belong there. They're in a very, very bad place on that northeast corner. And we would encourage PD to write summonses on any of those vehicles that are there. This mayor has made a very, very real commitment to placard abuse. We don't know who's sticking placards in that windshield, but they don't belong there. And Dennis has been really, really adamant with our team that those illegally parked vehicles there, they are not associated with our project. I don't have PED or bike counts with me tonight. I can provide those to you, but we have taken into account in the design, creating again, the safe bike path. We don't have the opportunity to provide this on almost any other bridge in New York City. We're very committed to getting it done. And we're just going to continue to monitor the bridge and keep it in as good a shape as we can. In terms of the subaqueous cable, just to make clear that that is a cable that is buried under the bed of the river, not something that you would see even along the bottom of the river. We can provide the board with some more background on that. If everybody's interested in that type of detail, we can certainly send that over. Eric's team has all of that information. And I think those were the major topics that Allegra brought up.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think you touched upon the main points. Thank you, Janine. And we'll have to wrap up that part because we did go a bit long on that section. Emily Marty.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm usually not in the traffic and transportation meetings, so there's a lot that I don't know. I'm not an expert in this. I put all of my questions in the Q&A section, but I did have, starting with the first one, I was more concerned about the environmental health impact that it could have in the area. So I was wondering how that's being assessed during construction, after construction. Now that we know that if that's going to be used, there's going to be more transit, both via the waterways and via on the bridge, on the land and all that, and how that may impact the area. So that's the first question. The second question is, like, now that the bridge will move, will there be more movement through the waterway with bigger boats? Like, now it's going to be a potential route for these boats that usually cross, maybe, let's say, the Hudson River. The third question is, will this bridge require a toll for future maintenance or for whatever reason, and what reason that would be? And the last one is, could this be a potential new choke point where it could just be like an extension of additional traffic and more noise and pollution? And if there's estimates for that, if there's if that was looked into, basically. Thank you.
Okay, so let me do one of the easiest ones first. We do not have the authority to put tolls on any New York City bridge that we own. Any bridge that has a toll generally has the word authority after it, such as Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, New York City Port Authority. Those agencies have the legal ability to issue bonds, and they use the toll money and their bonding capability to provide for maintenance and improvements to their bridges. We don't have the authority to create tolls on our bridges, and so there's absolutely no potential for us to even do that. We just don't have the ability to do that. Not that I would imagine on any of these bridges how you would even attempt to do that, even with the Easy Pass technology and all that. So we can check that box pretty easily. I don't think that anything that we're doing is anticipating a significant increase in vessel traffic. But again, it's important to understand that should vessels choose to travel this waterway, they have the right to do it now. And we have to provide that clearance for them. So while none of this is being done to enhance marine traffic, should they come, we have to build it if they come. And we're not forecasting or anticipating any tremendous increase in vessel traffic. The other question that you asked is about a traffic choke point. I don't think we're not making the bridge larger. We're not increasing any travel lanes on the bridge. We're not increasing capacity. So we don't expect it to be any more of a traffic congestion than it is. And I think everybody would recognize it is. We're not here to pretend it's not. This is a very, very busy place between the two boroughs, but nothing that we're doing, we believe, is going to increase those volumes on the bridge. And then the last one you asked was about air impacts, which I honestly don't completely understand. I don't think if we expect to generate any increase in vehicular traffic, there should be any registerable, if that's a word, recordable increase in any exhaust or any kind of impact from the vehicular traffic on the bridge.
Janine, can you just reiterate what was the average annual openings of Broadway Bridge?
It's pretty small. Let me pull out the book. We have an annual report that should have it. Eric, do you know it off the top of your head prior to?
I think it's like less than half a dozen.
Okay.
Right, okay, so let's go with that.
Okay. Yeah, one of the board members in attendance, Aisha Ogilvy, had asked that question. Okay, great. So with that, I think that is
I see there's a question in the chat, Deborah, from Senator Jackson's
yes,
representative.
I was just going to say, are you able to type into the chat? Can you, or whoever on the team, Dennis or Eric, are you able to type in there?
Let me, I think what might make more sense, I want to give due attention to the question. Let me just repeat it quickly, and Eric can answer it very quickly. And then if we need to provide additional information, we'll get back to you on that. The question is, what about using MTA or Con Edison conduits? And I'm sure on the MTA portion, there's a huge legal problem for us to share anything with the MTA. But I don't know, Eric, if you can give sort of the 30-second answer to that. You're on mute, Eric.
Jolene, can I actually?
Oh, please go right ahead. Please do.
On the MTA, New York City Transit actually is looking to replace their duct under the channel also. So to use what they have at this point would not be feasible either. If they have a whatever it is, 100-year-old. I forget whether it's a tunnel or what the technical word is, but they are looking to replace their cabling under the channel also at this time. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay. Bruce, did you have something before we moved on?
Yeah, one quick question. What is the cost to raise and lower this bridge for 6 openings per year?
I can't.
The question
define
is
cost. Define cost for me.
All the cabling, the aerial cable, the cable, or the study under the water, all the mishigas you've gone through to figure out how to raise and lower this bridge for 6 openings, and how many of those are Coast Guard. And it gets back to my basic premise, which is the whole thing is it's stupid to have this bridge go up and down.
So
do we need to get the politicians involved?
What's the cost of the project? Because
so
the project
we can, while Eric or Dennis pulls that out of their memory banks, please, I would ask you keep in mind what we're doing on the bridge is not just to make it go up and down.
I don't mean that. I mean, what portion of it having to do with getting these 2 motors in sync with the cable across above, below, whatever? What is the synchronization of the motors to raise and lower the bridge cost as a portion of the whole project?
That's definitely something I won't be able to answer tonight, but we should be able to tell you the dollar value. Again, Dennis,
Yeah,
Uh,
the total dollar value of the project with everything is about 92 million.
Okay.
And
So
again,
what portion of that is having to do with all?
I won't hazard a guess tonight without being prepared. Numbers are too important, but you can mark that down. Who's ever keeping notes as well as me.
Thank you very
can
much.
Mark
Because
that
I
down.
intend to bring it to our state senator and raise it as an
Please.
issue. His
Yes.
representative is on the call.
Yeah.
Very-
Mr. Robertson, I don't disagree with you.
Right.
If I could make this bridge fixed, I absolutely would.
Thank you.
Okay, so Deborah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much to the whole team, Janine, Eric, Dennis, Yana, Waskar. I really appreciate the time and you being here tonight. You can hang out with us or leave as you wish. And I am going to ask, I guess, Lyle and wait, did I say thank you, Dennis? I hope I did.
You did.
And Lyle, who else do we have from DOT? Do we have anybody that needs to be promoted?
So Deborah, you can see in the background, I'm still at 55 Water Street. So I think I'll let our team, we'll sign off and I will head home and we'll be in touch again.
Very good. Thanks
Thank you,
again.
everybody
Good
on my
night.
team.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Good night.
Yeah, Deborah, I have my hand up because I would like the committee to entertain a motion that we might want to pass, because we have a bunch of, and maybe, we have every right to do this with or without DOT here. But the thing is, as you probably heard for longer than you wanted to, the issue of the aerial cable was totally about the vulnerability of the bridge and the security of the travel and so on and so forth. And there are other issues that our other board members this evening brought up that they don't like. So I would think that it's in order and it sounds like they're not going to be ready to move for a while anyway. But and so maybe we can think about what we want to say. We may not have to do it tonight but I think we need to, reiterate our opposition to the aerial cable for the reasons that we were really against it. And
well, Jim, if you're proposing a resolution, make the motion for the resolution. Don't speak
okay,
for the rest
I
of
move
us
we
of
pass
how
a
the rest of us-
resolution reiterating our opposition to the aerial cable connecting the two towers because it particularly makes the bridge vulnerable to sabotage and other damage.
Is anybody from the committee seconding that?
Well, then we're not going to do it. That's okay.
I have a bigger concern. Somebody could blow out the bridge, the cable. So
All right.
let's discuss it offline some more, can we?
Yeah. Yeah.
We can always do it next month or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Lyle.
Hi, Debbie. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I don't have any of my colleagues from DOT tonight. One of my colleagues was supposed to join me, but she actually got called to another meeting at the last minute. I do know that we have Sandra Harris from CUMC along with me to speak about an update we have in regards to the Haven Avenue Plaza. I'm not sure if Sandra is there. I see her there. I'm not sure.
Wait. Let's take a step back, Lyle.
Mm-hmm.
You put this on the agenda. You asked me to put this on the agenda like just a couple of days ago, that there was the update on the traffic study, which had been, dramatically delayed with the pandemic, etc. So now you're saying, unfortunately, people couldn't come and present that.
Yeah, we still have some information in regards to the traffic study, but as far as any, there might be some questions I might have to take back to my colleagues.
Okay, but then,
sorry.
so Sandra, do you have information about the traffic study? Like, why is Sandra presenting that?
Well, I'm not necessarily presenting on the traffic study. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us here. But I did wanted to be on the meeting tonight in case you had any questions, because I also have the information on the study. My understanding is that DOT has to present it because they approved the study. So I'm just here in case you have any questions in particular to the process. If you recall, the last time we made some adjustments in our loading docks. So I definitely wanted to give an update on that in terms of our deliveries and our actual footprint on the streetscape as well.
Okay. So you've seen some stuff. You can't necessarily share that stuff so much, but maybe a little, but some of the stuff that's more directly that you control, you can. I mean, I guess I'll say, before I say what I want to say, completely, when did the plaza open? Like what month and what year? I'm sorry.
It was, if I recall, around Memorial Day, 2019.
Right. Okay. So, I wasn't on the committee during 2019, but we do, you know, there was an intent and an obligation to obviously look at the plaza after it had been going a while and see, you know, how it was going, what was utilization, etc. And then we had the pandemic, so that didn't happen. And so we still need to do that, but that's not tonight. But to my mind, like
well,
so I guess what I'm saying is, so tonight, I'd like to keep it to whatever information is available. Sandra, you have some stuff that you can share about the loading docks, and I remember that stuff, so I'm interested to hear that. Lyle, if there's any bits that you can share, but people should know that then we will need to pick up in the next month or two and kind of have the conversation about the plaza itself and how we feel it's going and all that stuff.
Okay.
So that then, and then, yeah. So,
yeah,
so we'll circle back on that. So Lyle,
yeah,
why don't you say what you can say, and then Sandra can do her part, and that's that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can speak to the traffic study. You know, at least the one that we had said we would come back to the community board to present. So, again, just as a quick, pretty much like refresher and introduction to this, we come to the community board several years ago in order to propose a plaza on Haven Avenue between 160th and Fort Washington, 269th and Haven Avenue. The study was approved in April 2018 by DOT. As mentioned previously, the plaza on an interim basis was open on Memorial Day of 2019. Ideally, the plan was to come back to the community board not so long after that, after some time had passed, in order to discuss the traffic study in a little more detail. But as you know, the pandemic had happened, and that pushed things a little back for us as far as coming back to the board in order to present. So in March of 2020, that's when the lockdown occurred. We have collected data pretty much from the start of the project, and they continue through the installation of the plaza and continued, post installation. So we have data collection pretty much from the start, of the installation or the project actually, from 2018, and then we have the information pretty much through once it's been installed. So in November 2020, we had data collected during the plaza condition. So 18 months after the installation of the plaza, we had ramped up our data collection again. And in October of 2021, that information was reviewed by my colleagues at DOT and approved, as being an official study on our end. So just to advise the study locations that we used for the project are 168th between Haven and Fort Washington Avenues, 169th Street and Fort Washington Avenue, that intersection, the intersection of West 170th and Fort Washington, West 171st and Fort Washington, which are all signalized locations. They have traffic signals there. There are 3 unsignalized locations, so without traffic signals. We also conducted some studies, which would be at 169th and Haven, 170th in Haven, and 171st in Haven. So ideally, the area immediately surrounding the plaza, we tried in order to see what the immediate impacts would be of the installation once the plaza is in place. We also, as mentioned, have loading docks to factor in. So we had data collection for those areas of Fort Washington, Haven by 165th Streets, 168th Streets, and 169th Streets in order to factor the loading zones and the utilization of the curb in those areas as well. We also had travel times for vehicles along Fort Washington Avenue just to check the impacts of those as well. So all those factors came into play when trying to conduct the study overall. Ideally, we did have to factor the pandemic in to our studies, but what was done was we pretty much adjusted those counts in order to reflect non-pandemic conditions in coordination with Sam Schwartz. So basically, there were numbers that we had pre-installation and pre-pandemic that we used when factoring in the numbers during the pandemic in order to see when those were stretched out to essentially non-pandemic totals. We factored that all in as far as trying to come up with a comprehensive study as to how it's being utilized and the impacts to the area. The results more or less determined that the intersections would generally operate similar to the conditions pre-plaza. Again, one of the factors that, one of the things that, at least on the DOT side that we had put in was the intersection of the traffic signal at 169 and Fort Washington. And some of the things that we had done also for the project, would be lane reversal, the one-way conversion of 169th in order to factor that traffic signal in order to ease traffic flow off of Haven to go east onto 169th. It looks like in the grand scheme, minor signal timing adjustments were recommended for the intersection of Fort Washington and 168th Streets to give a shift of 4 seconds of additional green light time during the weekday peak times in order to factor those in. We also had the hours extended at the loading docks along within the plaza area along Columbia's property, which also helped to factor in the study overall. Again, ideally, curbside access was something that we had tried to take into consideration with the impacts of potential drop-offs for trucks and other commercial vehicles that would go to those loading docks. There would possibly be the potential to have any sort of double parking or any sort of blockage of the 3 traffic lanes. So we did factor in, those were factored in also when the study was conducted. And like I said, overall, the traffic impacts based on the study were minimal at best as far as, any sort of additional traffic that the plaza would have caused, or any other factors involved. So as far as DOT is concerned, at least from a traffic standpoint or from a traffic impact standpoint, the plaza hasn't really done much in order to really have a great impact as far as traffic times. I don't know. That's pretty much the information I have on my end as far as the study. As far as the technical information, I don't have any numbers on me again. I can get those if need be, but I don't have those on me right now. I will say this though. everything was taken into consideration. Loading docks, curbside utilization, travel time data was collected in order to develop the pre-plaza conditions. Again, Sam Schwartz was the leader when it came to the study, and we took their information and more or less reviewed it and agreed with them and with their findings. Construction of the temporary plaza began in May of 2019. Monitoring efforts were conducted during the construction to determine if any immediate modifications were needed. Following the plaza construction, traffic, loading dock, curbside utilization, and travel time data were collected to assess operations with the implementation of the plaza. And again, this information was collected 18 months after the plaza was implemented, so starting in November of 2020. Loading dock, curbside utilization, again, travel time data was collected 1 month after the plaza was implemented in June of 2019, as well as 18 months after the plaza was implemented, so in November of 2020. Our traffic engineering and planning division within DOT looked at the 2020 plaza traffic condition analysis, which also includes a non-pandemic scenario during weekday and peak times for the hospital when it's in operation. Adjustment factors were calculated based on the 2016 pre-pandemic and 2020 pandemic volumes, and used to increase the 2020 volumes to represent what would be considered 2020 non-pandemic condition. Yeah, so taking all that into consideration, you know, Sam Schwartz as well as DOT feel that the impacts are minimal from a traffic standpoint, at least, you know, from what we've seen so far.
Okay. All right, Lyle, let me just stop because it's really hard to absorb this information like without slides and a little, you know, and seeing what we, you know, what we looked at before and what we're seeing now. So, I mean, understanding that the endpoint is that you didn't see worrying impacts that needed to be addressed to travel times, etc. Just go through with me again. So 1, can you say again what the 4-second adjustment at 168th and Fort Washington was, like which direction? And then also just say one more time. So the sort of post plaza study period, understanding that it needed to be adjusted, what was the time period for the post plaza, this data that's been collected and looked at and normalized or whatever?
Yeah. So minor single timing adjustments are recommended at the intersection of Fort Washington and 168th, with the shift of 4 seconds of green time during weekday AM peak hours and during peak times for the hospital. So that would be ideally in both directions for the signal timing. In regards to,
so like 4 seconds for going north-south, like going for Fort Washington, 4 more seconds for north and southbound traffic on Fort Washington at 168.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. And then the other question of like, so say again what the dates of the study, the post plaza study period were.
Give me 1 second. Let's see if I can find it again. Okay, so the data that was collected from 2016 to 2018 was used to develop the baseline pre-plaza conditions.
Yeah.
And temporary plaza was constructed in 2019 around Memorial Day. The first data collection occurred in June of 2019, so about a month after the plaza was installed originally, and picked up again in November of 2020, so 18 months after the plaza was installed.
So November 2020 again. Okay. And all right. Let me just see if
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just want to make a correction. I think, Lyle, in June of 2019, was when we were scheduled to begin the study, but we had the water main replacement work, and that's why it was put on hold.
Ah, that's right. That's right.
Yes,
So,
because it would have affected travel patterns. So in
That's
fact, the water main break work began. Then we had full-blown COVID, but the data collection started in November of 2020.
That's what it was. Yeah, and that's my mistake. I did forget about that. There was a DDC project for water main.
Yeah, now that's sort of ringing a bell.
Yeah,
even though
sorry
I
about that. Sandra, thank you so much. I forgot about that part. Yes, that's pretty important.
So,
That
what was November 2020 was the data poll. Before we go to, I mean, I guess I have one question, but Lyle, you don't have to respond to it now, but like there's been an increase in traffic in the latter stages of the pandemic, like everywhere in the city. Like everybody's in their cars and traffic has been bad everywhere beyond peak times. And I'm just interested to know, what you don't have to answer now, but if you could sort of share with us maybe at some point, is how is DOT sort of bringing that into these pre and post analyses of like, you know, like what's related to the thing you're trying to study versus like the big increase. I don't think it's a factor here though, so maybe it's not worth spending time on, but I'm just sort of curious about that. If you could share with us at a future time, just
I can see if so ideally pretty much as far as it impacts more or less I guess 2021 pretty much like around that time or more or less later.
No, that's true. I think it was probably mostly something we really saw in 2021, but anyway, just sort of curious, but you don't have to answer that now. So why don't we have Aisha who has a question, but Sandra, did you have a few more comments you want to make about loading before then we
yes, if you recall, so the loading docks was one of the major issues that we agreed to address on our end in terms of minimizing the on-street deliveries. So what we started to do is looked at pre-plaza conditions where we only had our Hammer building, our Black building, and the Allen Rosenfield building doing deliveries for 3 or 4 hours. So we started a campus-wide campaign with our vendors to redirect most of our deliveries, one to off-peak delivery times, and also for greater utilization of our loading docks. So right now we have our Black building loading dock is operating 24 hours. Pre-plaza, it was only 8 to 4 shifts. So we've seen an increase in those 24 hours of deliveries over a 5-day period of over 125 deliveries per week. The same thing in our Hammer building, we had our 8 to 8. That was increased, and now my dog is coming here. Okay, so that, sorry. And that was also increased to 8 to 4, bringing our deliveries over a 5-day period to 40, and the same thing with the Allen Rosenfield building. So one of the things, if you recall, that we wanted to do with the Allen Rosenfield is get our deliveries to come through the Riverside loading dock and come up. You know, we're trying to promote this Get Fit for delivery trucks. I mean, we're still not 100% there yet. We're working with local enforcement to get them, you know, increased ticketing in the area for the double parking. I think definitely, Debbie, the bike lanes have helped tremendously. The shift to 168 in terms of the double park, but we are seeing the increase one by month in terms of getting our delivery off the main streets, particularly in during rush hour, during our daily operating hours. So that's working, but we're continuing to work on this and hope to see an increase over the summer, particularly on the Riverside Drive drop off as well.
Okay, that's great. And then do you guys directly interact with PD on some of these enforcement, getting some support on enforcement on these, congestion, double parking issues?
We do. One of the challenges is that they're not able to actually haul these cars away, right? We can ask for towing trucks, so that's part of the problem. But it's a cat and mouse game, and it goes around throughout the day. But we have received enforcement along Fort Washington. I don't know if you recall when we're having the issues with the buses not being able to upload and pick up passengers. So that was helpful to have increased enforcement along Fort Washington Avenue. So that kind of things got a little better in terms of ticketing, not towing yet. But we continue to push for that.
All right, thank you. It does seem a lifetime ago that we talked about, with you presented, those ideas about shifting some to the Riverside,
right,
and taking pressure off the really congested parts. Aisha?
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Good evening.
Yep.
Okay, so first of all, I want to start off with the good. Thank you for considering moving some of the traffic that comes to the loading dock. It is very difficult with trucks idling, double parking, blocking the intersection, which is a T intersection in multiple on multiple streets. Freezer trucks idling for a very long. I've had to get up and walk outside multiple times. I work from home. Many people are working from home during this pandemic. I have even shifted my schedule to where I'm staying up overnight because it's quieter, so that I can get the work done and the reading done that I need to do, that is really impossible during the daytime, with not just the traffic from the deliveries and the trucks, but the traffic that it creates, the horn honking, not just on Haven, but on Fort Washington as well. It is insanity. I've recorded some of that. My neighbors, because they know that I'm on the board, come to me about those issues. It is peculiar to me that it's like nothing to see here, according to DOT, when according to we that live here on the perimeter of this plaza, who said before it was a plaza, this is already a nightmare. How could you exacerbate it? It definitely has been exacerbated, right? And I'm asking for you to entertain. I took some notes here. I'm going to move through them quickly, but Mike Hanno, unfortunately, as you know, has been a staunch advocate in regards to the plaza and the issues concerning it. Is not able to be with us tonight. He asked me to speak on several points.
Aisha, I'm going to give you a little extra time, but
yes,
like you're already over 2 minutes, so I'll give you another minute, and
thank
then
you.
Okay, but please move it along.
I am.
Editorial. Okay.
The time, but for many people, it's hard to get into this meeting. You know that this is an issue that hundreds of people from the community turned out in opposition to, right? And with short notice, they couldn't be present, and also people are limited because they don't do the Zoom thing, right? That being said, I reject the idea of making an assumption about what post-pandemic might be based on some estimate. First of all, the original traffic study wasn't even produced in a timely fashion before the vote was had in this instance that allowed for this to go through, right? So we are in this plaza situation, not having the board properly review the original study in the first place, which many of us who did see it after.
Aisha, please move it along to a question.
Okay, but if you're continuously
question or a comment,
it kind of slows me down, Deb. I would like to make my points. Thank you. That being said, and that's one of my points about the original traffic study. I think I'm entitled. Whether you want to hear it or not is really neither here nor there. So I'm taking issue with the lack of outreach to the vast majority of people that live on the perimeter of this plaza. They say that they've evaluated and then they've spoken to. No one is speaking to the people that live here about the impact that they experience with this plaza, right? Which those people should have been invited to this meeting. Luckily,
Okay, 20 more seconds, 20 more seconds.
yeah, but
Aisha.
if you said you were going to give me a minute and then you keep interjecting. I don't know if
You're at 4 minutes.
It doesn't matter. You gave me extra time and then you've interrupted me about 5-6 times, which you know I'm going to reject. You know that I'm going to speak against it. So why not just give me the minute and let me talk? Then you wonder why this is the conversation we end up having. And I'm sorry, Jim.
You just keep saying the same stuff over again. Make your point.
Parliamentarian, if you might, you've seen how many times I've been interrupted in this process. I would like for the time that I was told I would be given.
You have gotten way more than the time Debbie said you would have.
But I actually did
so
not.
your time is now up,
because I was being
unfortunately.
talked over.
Your time, no, you weren't. Whether you were talked over
I
or
was
not,
being watched
the
along.
total amount. If you ask me a question, so you have to be quiet while I'm. You ask me a question, so be quiet and listen to what I'm going to say.
You don't do it to anybody else, whether they go over the time or not. You don't do it to anybody else.
We do it to everybody.
You do stuff
Debbie,
to us that
please
you
turn
don't,
her
nobody
off.
else does to us.
I
so-
didn't see you interrupting people while they were talking. I didn't.
Well, then you weren't watching.
Okay, so we're
I
at
was
5 minutes
watching.
now. Okay, so let's give Aisha 45 seconds. If she has a question or one more observation, 45 seconds. That'll bring us to 6 minutes even. Go.
So I was going to mention the emergency vehicles that I have seen being prevented from passage since this has happened. I'm interested to know what is their take on how the plaza has impacted things. I spoke about the idling, and see, then you interrupt me. You throw me completely off track of my train of thought of where I was going. As far as the parking, there was parking that was offered in order to provide for the reduction of parking. Most people have said to me, it doesn't help them because it's during a period of time where they don't need it. And then that same parking lot sits empty overnight. So that's also an issue that I wanted to raise, but I'm hoping that this is put back on the calendar on another day where the community who is affected can come forward to speak to their impact.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Debbie, I can just quickly, Aisha, thank you. First of all, for acknowledging our efforts in terms of the loading dock efforts on street. In terms of the parking, I can definitely come back to the committee and speak to that because my office personally handled that process. And we did get local residents who participated in the free parking and also in the extension of day parking that was also offered. And it is actually being offered during the evenings when our staff is not using it. So I would be interested in hearing from you what some of those residents are saying and seeing how we can accommodate that, because that's the idea of balancing the schedules and opening the accessibility. So
I'm not sure how that information was distributed.
We did a lottery and it was done through the community board. There was a huge mailing. We also had it in the paper, and we actually for the free parking, we received several applications from the community, and they were picked by lottery. So we have that whole process. And I would definitely am willing to come back and present on that. But it was a very transparent process.
So
I personally posted some flyers on some buildings.
Okay.
I didn't see that communicated. You know that this is a hot button topic for me.
Okay. I'm just
Okay.
muting you now just because it's for me to talk, not we're not going to back and forth, but I do remember Sandra that you kept that there was stuff going through community board on this topic because you weren't getting signups and these spots were sitting there and they were sort of meant to address at least in part the issues that were identified about parking concerns at that time. So, and we do need to have, again, this tonight was, just it was admittedly somewhat a last minute agenda item, but was just meant to hear about the traffic study. Obviously, we've heard about it, in part, and Lyle, I appreciate that. But in all cases, we do need to schedule the sort of more robust follow-up on the plaza itself. And I guess I can't say right now whether that would be April, May, but I think we should do it in one of those. So Sandra, maybe we can talk a little bit about that. And then Lyle, if there's, at that time, and I don't, if we could have something brief that just was a little bit more visual on the traffic study to just, so everybody can kind of see it and absorb it one more time. And again, it can be brief, but just something that kind of lays it out visually with, what we saw before and then what you guys looked at and all that stuff. Yeah, that would be awesome. So Sandra, so let's connect.
May sounds good.
Sorry?
May sounds good for a presentation in May.
Okay, so, and we can talk offline a bit about sort of what we're going to want to cover there, but I think we're all pretty clear on sort of what the concerns were and sort of what we might be asking. So, and then certainly that we will schedule in a way, and hopefully it will be May, that we can do the appropriate outreach. And that's it.
And we still I'm sorry, Debbie, we still have that offer of community parking. So I will resend the flyer. Aisha, I'll send you something directly. And again, if anyone is interested, they could just feel free and apply. And if you like, you could give me a heads up as well.
I just also want to recognize Liz Ritter joined for the board member list. Liz, you had a comment?
Yeah, it's not about the Haven Plaza. I mean, although I did just go through my old emails, and I have several emails, e-blasts about the lottery for community parking with the flyer. And I did just cut and paste that language and throw it into the Q&A. But my question that I wanted to ask does not actually relate to this item. It's a new business question for Lyle.
Okay, so I think we are wrapped up then on Haven, and then I will try to get information to people. Oh wait, Bruce, I'm sorry.
I have an old business question, so let Liz go first, please.
All right.
Who are you calling old business?
Actually,
no comment.
I'd rather go the old question and then the new question.
I'm not sure if it's older.
Okay.
Would that be okay?
So while Julio and Sandra and Ross Frommer, last month we talked about the two assaults at the 168th Street subway. That corner is a mess. We were going to do a kind of a group we'll do a walkthrough, but I think we were preempted by another group having to do with our congressman and others who did a walkthrough. So what's going on with that? I mean, that corner needs to be cleaned up before more people get assaulted.
And Bruce, I was invited from our committee. I just couldn't go that night.
It doesn't matter. I just want to know if something's happening and what else do we need to do, because it's really bad. And that was last month. So I'm bringing it forward to this month to see if you can shed some light on what the situation is. Thank you.
Debbie, should I say a little thing about it?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Julia.
Sure. Thank you. So thank you, Bruce. So Carmen, Councilmember Carmen de la Rosa organized a walkthrough of the location with other elected officials, including Mark Levine and Manny de la Rosa, who's the new, Manny de los Santos, I'm sorry, who is the new assemblyman. And we took a walk. I guess they, went around. I'm happy to report that since our last meeting, I have seen a lot more foot patrol on 168th Street, 169th Street, which is greatly appreciated. In terms of the walkthrough, the council member is organizing something further with some of the city agencies to tackle some of the concerns down at the station. So bringing in additional city agencies to look at it. So I believe there's another sort of meeting that she will be scheduling with the city agencies around safety and of course around the homeless that are congregating at that station.
So one quick interjection. The landlord for that corner who was supposed to take down the scaffolding 10 years ago, is anything being done about that?
I have some information on that.
It's the city of New York.
So I know the elected officials again through I believe it was may have led like through Mark Levine and the Congressman Espaillat did send a letter to the Department of Buildings to take a look at some sort of schedule, see what the permitting has been. We have, to my understanding, there's been no response to that letter. However, the Department of Health did report that they are looking at this internally. The Department of Facilities is in fact studying and looking at what, sort of timeline. There are some facade issues the Department of Health needs to take care of, along with some repairs to the roof. They have committed to asking perhaps some of their officers from the Department of Health to see if they could step out of the building and perhaps do a little bit more enforcement outside on their sidewalk. That is still yet to, we have not received word whether that's actually going to take place. But also they did mention that they would, see whether in fact, what would be a timeline for those repairs to be done and the scaffolding to be taken down.
All right, thanks.
Julio, I just want to add
Thank you.
real quick, Bruce, one of the things that we asked for in the meantime is really improved lighting as a key deterrent in that area. So we're going to be monitoring that this week and see if they change the light bulbs and see what happens.
Jim Berlin mentioned that last time.
Yeah,
Right.
and to be fair, the Department of Health, they said they were going to do that as well. Look at the lighting issue and improve it. Thank you.
Thanks all. Jay, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, and there was a presentation by the health department at the health committee on Thursday. And basically they said, we don't have a completion date on the work, but the problem is they don't have a completion date. They don't have a starting date either. Of course, the work hasn't been done. It occurs to me, and this is just an idea, not a fact, it's a lot cheaper to keep up the scaffolding than it is to do the work, as many landlords know. And the landlord for that building is the Department of Health. And they might have made that decision over the 6-year period that the scaffolding has been up. So I think that there isn't exactly goodwill on this question by the department. I think they're responding to complaints, but I don't know that any actual effort has been put in based on their response at the health committee meeting. Julio was also present, and he might have a different impression than me.
Okay, well, I sort of feel like we, in terms of the traffic and transportation aspect of this, I think we've we answered or sort of provided a sufficient update, Bruce?
Yes, thank you all.
Okay. Jim? Jim, unmute. Oh, okay. That was an old hand.
There. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So I just want to put everything that we just heard in perspective. The reality is that what we call the scaffolding, which is technically called sidewalk bridging, has to remain in place until the facade of the building is perfectly safe. And, you know, as Jay pointed out, probably cynically, and you know, landlords behave that way. It's a shame that the city, if it's a landlord, behaves that way also. You know, it's cheaper not to do the work. It's conceivable that the facade work could cost millions and it's going to come out of someone's budget. But I think, you know, based upon what I heard, and I hear a great deal of cooperation going on between the hospital, between the health department. So these various things are being done, and you know, ideally, you know, the building has to be repaired and the scaffolding will be removed. But you know, for the time being, ideally, we're going to have additional patrols. Ideally, we're going to have better lighting, and it sounds like, you know, again, with the cooperation, and I'm so happy to hear about, conditions ideally will be improved. Thank you.
Sorry, it's 9 o'clock, so I do want to start wrapping the meeting up, but we do have just a couple more things. I mean, one, Lyle, it's sort of good, appropriate that Liz Ritter has joined us, because Liz is usually the source of all our intel on Henshaw and Riverside. And when we, you know, have fed you pictures of various accidents, etc., it's come via Liz and her neighbors. But I'm just wondering, you know, you provided updates a while back, but is there anything going on with DOT and that corner? There was, Liz had reported, and another neighbor had reported another accident, but this seemed to involve like people getting hurt, not just DOT signage. So I'm just wondering if it's sort of hitting your screen just for the number of accidents that have been there, and some of which people have gotten injured.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything as far as the most recent accidents that had occurred. What might be a good idea, maybe it might be a good idea to schedule a site visit for this area, just to kind of walk through and see in real time what's going on over there.
Yeah,
maybe
that would be great.
I mean, there was that one, I feel like we had that one, and at first I thought like, oh, wow, like somebody had brought up like changing the direction of one of the streets or whatever, and I was like, huh.
Yeah, we've looked at that area, you know, here and there. You know, we've had conversations about it over the past several years, as far as just trying to make that a little bit more traffic calmed. But you know, at least in regards to the signage, you know, by the off ramp, you know, by the exit, you know, we, you know, try to get on top of that whenever those signs are knocked down. But if it's, you know, getting to the point where, you know, there's more of an impact on people, you know, like I said, it might be a good idea to go and take a walk around there and just keep going.
So let's do this. When do you have a sense of when implementation is going to happen on Seaman between Riverside and Dykeman?
I don't, but I can reach out to my colleagues in order to get that information for you. I know
Okay,
that
so
internally.
Let's bring that together, because I think when that change happens, then I think it maybe is a good opportunity to then do that walkthrough, and kind of, because it's going to have some impact on Henshaw, but I think that might be a good time. So let's like keep track of that, but it sounds like it's going to be a little bit more in the spring. Liz, you had a new
Well, no, that was essentially my question, sort of wondering when the two-wayness of Seaman was going to be implemented, and really evaluating that exit from the Henry Hudson Parkway holistically in the context of what's happening there. So yeah, I would be very happy to be involved in any kind of site visit, it's an interesting little corner, and I know if nothing else, you can save a whole lot of money in not having to continually replace those signs that people keep taking out when they, as the police, when they respond, like to say, when they come off the highway, taking it a little hot, you know.
And I do wonder, you know, and I don't know sufficient about it, and it's probably a good thing for this to come to the committee, but if there is an expansion of the speed camera program, you know, I think there's only so much people are slowing down when they're coming off the highway with head of steam. Like, that's always going to be a problem spot. So again, is there, when all these, if that does come to pass, this would be a good spot, because I think unless you ticket people for that kind of thing, they're just not going to stop because they're coming off the highway. And unless you really have a reminder to come down on the speed immediately because you're in a residential neighborhood, it's
Yeah,
not
I
gonna
think that if people feel it in their pocketbooks, that behavior will become self-correcting.
Yeah.
But I also think that something like rumble strips, that's just, you know, not speed bumps. That's sort of a different creates a different problem than what it solves. But rumble strips is a really helpful tool to help drivers to slow down and to remind them to slow down, because it's a little freaky when you hit a rumble strip at, you know, any speed, frankly, never mind 40, 50 miles an hour.
Right. Yeah, good point. Good point. But thank you, Liz, because
Thank you.
You know me, and I need the nudges sometimes, and so I appreciate how consistent you've been to make sure that I have the information that you and your neighbors are seeing out your windows.
Thank you.
With that, I would like a motion to close out this meeting. I would like to thank, we've got a second from Bruce. Let me thank Sandra and Julio and Ross for being here tonight. Lyle, as always, my committee and CB12 members who are here tonight joining us. Thanks. And of course, the public. Everybody have a good month. I'll see you at the general. And I think we're gonna see each other in person potentially by the next time we meet.
Good night, Debbie. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Good night, all.